A blind little girl cried alone on a Texas road. Then a wounded cowboy changed everything. The Texas sun was hot, burning the dry, dusty road that stretched as far as the eye could see. The land was quiet except for the occasional rustle of dry grass in the wind and the distant hum of a tractor somewhere far away. But amidst this stillness, there was a small, desperate sound, a little girl crying. She sat on the edge of the road, her legs pulled close to her chest. Her small hands were clenched over her knees, and tears ran freely down her dusty cheeks. Her face was pale from fear, and her light brown hair was tangled and unkempt. She had no idea where she was or how she had gotten there. All she knew was that she felt alone, lost, and afraid. The girl's cries rang out across the empty landscape. "Mama, Papa, somebody please," she called, her voice shaking with fear and exhaustion. Her words were full of hope, but also desperation. Every shout seemed to disappear into the endless expanse of land without an answer. The hot sun beat down on her small frame, making her feel even smaller, even more vulnerable. She had been wandering for what felt like hours, though she had no way to measure time. She couldn't see the sun directly. Her blindness made her world dark and uncertain. All she could do was feel, listen, and stumble forward in the hope of finding someone who could help her. She tried to remember the way back to where she had come from, but everything was a blur in her mind. She could only remember soft voices, warm hands, and a place she thought of as home, but it was gone now. Occasionally, the sound of tires on the road would break her panic-filled silence. Cars and trucks passed by, but none stopped. She called out to them, waving her small arms in the air. "Please, help me, don't leave me," she screamed, her voice breaking. She imagined someone would see her, notice her alone, and come to help, but no one did. Some drivers slowed briefly, then drove on, unwilling to stop for fear of trouble or perhaps not noticing her small figure in the harsh sunlight. The girl's chest heaved with sobs. Her small body shook, not only from fear but also from hunger and fatigue. She hadn't eaten anything since morning, and the few sips of water she had found at a roadside ditch were barely enough to quench her thirst. She felt the dry earth under her legs, the prickly weeds brushing against her skin, and the rough stones cutting into her palms. Each sensation reminded her that she was truly alone. Despite the heat, she wrapped her thin jacket tighter around herself. She wasn't just cold from the wind, she was cold from loneliness. Her heart ached with the longing for someone familiar, a mother, a father, even a friendly stranger who could guide her, hold her hand, and tell her everything would be okay. As she sat there crying, her mind wandered back to the last place she remembered being safe. It was a small, humble house, where laughter once filled the rooms and voices had been kind. But something had gone wrong. People had been harsh, angry, and the love she had felt had vanished. She didn't know why she had been left, why no one had come after her. She only knew that now, she was alone on this long Texas road, with nothing but the sound of the wind and the empty horizon. The girl's small fingers traced the edge of the road, feeling the cracks in the asphalt and the tiny pebbles scattered around. She tried to find a rhythm, a sense of direction, anything that could give her hope. She counted the stones under her fingertips, hoping to measure distance or find some sign of a path, but all the stones felt the same. All the cracks felt the same, and all around her the land stretched endlessly, empty and indifferent. Her tears had dried on her cheeks, leaving trails of dust and salt. She tried to stand, but her legs trembled from fatigue. She felt dizzy and stumbled slightly, catching herself on a dry bush. A sharp sting reminded her that the world could hurt as much as it could ignore. But she forced herself to take another step, whispering to herself, "I have to keep going. Someone will come. Someone has to come." Hours seemed to pass without change. The sun moved slowly across the sky and the shadows shifted on the road, but nothing else changed. The girl's voice grew hoarse from calling out, and her small frame sagged with exhaustion. She felt her eyelids drooping, the dry air making it hard to breathe. She sank to the ground again, hugging her knees tightly and rocking slightly. She wanted to cry, scream, and run all at once, but she was too tired, too small, too helpless. Then faintly, she heard something different, a sound unlike the hum of distant engines or the rustling of grass. It was a slow, uneven rhythm, the sound of hooves clopping against the dirt nearby. Her ears perked up. She didn't know exactly what it was, but it felt different, alive, real, maybe even safe. She called out, her voice a fragile whisper now, "Hello, please, someone." The sound grew closer, and soon she could hear a deep, steady voice calling out to someone else. It was calm, strong, and kind. For the first time in hours, her heart skipped a beat, not with fear but with hope. She imagined a grown-up, someone big and capable coming to scoop her up and carry her to safety. Her small hands reached out instinctively, as if they could feel the person before seeing them. As the sound grew nearer, the girl's small body tensed. She didn't know if she was imagining things, if it was real, or if it would just pass by. She whispered again, her words barely audible, "Please, don't leave me." The shadow of a figure appeared at the edge of her perception, and she felt the ground tremble slightly under the weight of hooves. The voice came closer, softer now, but still steady and full of warmth. The girl's heart raced as she tried to listen carefully, every nerve alert, every sense straining for any clue. She knew, somehow, that this might be the moment everything would change, but fear and caution still held her back. She had been abandoned before, left alone, ignored, and even when help came near, it could vanish just as quickly. Her small body shook again, but this time not entirely from despair. A spark of hope flickered in her chest, a tiny flame she wasn't willing to let die. The road stretched endlessly behind her, but for the first time the little girl didn't feel completely lost. She couldn't see, she couldn't run, and she didn't know what lay ahead, but she could hear it. And she knew somehow that this time someone was coming. Her small voice found its strength once more, trembling but determined. "Please help me." The wind carried her words down the empty Texas road, and far enough away, a wounded cowboy, unaware of the full extent of the journey he was about to face, heard them. The little girl, sitting alone under the blazing sun, had just taken the first step toward a change that would transform her world forever. The sound of hooves grew louder, echoing across the empty Texas road. The little girl's heart pounded in her chest. She didn't know who or what was approaching, but she felt a strange mix of fear and hope. Her small hands trembled as she reached out into the air, as if she could somehow touch safety before it even arrived. Rounding a small bend in the road came a cowboy, riding slowly on a tired, limping horse. He was a man in his mid-30s, with a wide-brimmed hat shading his face from the harsh sun. His clothes were dusty, and his boots were scuffed from long days on the ranch. But what made the little girl sense danger in his world, though she could not see it, was the way he moved carefully, as if every step was measured to avoid pain. She could hear it, a soft grunt when he shifted his weight, a slight hiss as he touched the horse's sides, and then a sharp intake of breath. The man was hurt. The cowboy's right arm was wrapped in a blood-stained cloth, and his shirt had a dark mark where a cut had opened. He was clearly in pain, yet his attention was drawn to the tiny cries that had carried across the open landscape. "Hello," he called out, his voice deep but gentle. "Is someone there?" The girl froze. The voice was unlike the cars and trucks that had passed her by. It was calm, strong, and safe. She wanted to answer, but fear rooted her to the ground. She didn't know this man. She had been alone for so long that trusting anyone seemed impossible. Still, the sound of a real voice, a human voice that did not ignore her, filled her with cautious hope. "Over here," she finally cried, her small voice cracking. "Please help me." The cowboy slowed his horse to a halt a few feet away, lowering himself gently onto the dusty road. He leaned forward slightly, keeping his weight balanced carefully on the horse, and spoke again. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. Can you tell me where you are?" The girl swallowed hard. She had no idea where she was. Her blindness made every step a challenge, and the empty land around her offered no landmarks. I don't know," she admitted, her voice trembling. I was walking, and then I don't know." The cowboy nodded slowly, understanding her fear without seeing her face. "That's all right," he said. "You're safe now, I'll help you. Can you come to me?" For a moment the girl hesitated. The last person she had trusted had left her. How could she know this man would not do the same? But the pain of the sun and the endless road and the exhaustion from hours of wandering made her consider the possibility. Slowly she reached out, her small hand trembling in the heat. I think so," she whispered. The cowboy moved carefully, lowering his hand to the ground so she could find it. "Here," he said softly, "take my hand. You don't have to see me to know I'm here." Her small fingers met his rough, calloused hand. For the first time in hours she felt steadiness. She felt the warmth of a human hand that would not let go. Tentatively, she allowed herself to be guided, standing unsteadily with the cowboy's support. Her legs shook, but the man's presence gave her courage she hadn't felt in a long time. "You're very brave," he said, noticing her small body trembling. "I know it's scary out here, but we're going to get you somewhere safe." The girl sniffled, trying to hold back tears. I was so scared," she admitted. "I didn't think anyone would come." The cowboy smiled gently, though he winced as the movement caused his wound to ache. "Sometimes it feels that way," he said, "but help can come when you least expect it. You just have to hold on a little longer." He guided her to a nearby patch of shade under a low tree. The sun blazed down around them, but here it was cooler. The girl sank to the ground, letting out a long, shaky breath. She felt the hard dirt beneath her legs, the small stones pressing uncomfortably against her skin, and yet she felt a little safer now that the man was near. The cowboy, despite his own injuries, knelt beside her. He looked at his blood-stained arm and cursed under his breath. He had been working on the ranch earlier, mending a fence, when a barbed wire snapped and cut him. He had been trying to make his way back home when he heard the girl crying. For a moment, he thought about ignoring his own pain and riding on, but something inside him refused. He could not leave a child alone on a hot Texas road. "Are you hurt anywhere?" the girl asked, her voice small and hesitant. He nodded. "A little," he admitted. "I got a cut on my arm, but I can handle it. You're my priority right now." The girl hesitated, unsure how someone so hurt could be helping her. Why are you helping me?" she asked. The cowboy paused, thinking carefully about his answer. "Because no one should be alone like you are," he said simply. "And because sometimes helping someone else helps you too." The girl didn't fully understand, but she sensed the honesty in his voice. She felt a little trust beginning to grow, fragile but real. She shifted closer, leaning against his side just slightly, seeking warmth and comfort. The cowboy carefully examined her small hands and scraped knees. "Looks like you've had a rough day," he said. "We'll clean you up and get you some water soon. But first, we need to make sure you're safe." She nodded, too tired to argue, and allowed him to help her stand. Together they began moving slowly down the road. Every step was careful. He supported her weight, and she clutched his hand tightly. Each movement caused pain in his arm and leg, but he ignored it. The girl's safety mattered more than his own discomfort. As they walked, he spoke softly to her, telling small stories about the ranch, about the horses and cows he worked with every day. He described the colors of the sky, the smells of the fields, and the sounds of birds singing in the distance. The girl listened, fascinated, her mind filling in images she could not see. For the first time in hours, she felt a spark of joy. Her fear did not vanish, but it was replaced by a fragile hope. The wind blew dust into their faces, and the road ahead seemed long, but the girl felt the steady presence of the cowboy at her side. She felt that she was not alone anymore. After a short while, they came across a small water ditch. The cowboy knelt and helped her drink. She sipped cautiously at first, then eagerly, letting the cool water wash away some of her exhaustion. He watched her carefully, making sure she didn't choke, and smiled at her small relief. "You're doing great," he said, wiping dust from her face. "Just a little further and we'll find someone who can take care of you." The girl's small voice rose again, not in fear but in relief. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for finding me." The cowboy's smile softened. "No need to thank me yet," he said. "We've still got a journey ahead, but I promise you're going to be okay." They continued slowly down the road, side by side. Every step was careful, but with each movement their bond grew stronger. The girl began to trust him more, her small hand gripping his with more confidence. The cowboy, despite his injuries, felt a growing sense of purpose. This little girl needed him, and he could not fail her. Hours seemed to pass, though the sun began to lower in the sky. The cowboy's horse stumbled occasionally, and he winced at the sharp pains in his arm, but he pressed on. The girl's voice, once full of desperate cries, was now calm and occasionally filled with questions about the world around her. He answered each one patiently, giving her the sense that she was safe, seen, and heard. By the time the sun began to dip toward the horizon, the little girl no longer felt completely alone. She had a companion, someone who cared, someone who had promised to help her. And the cowboy, despite his own pain, felt a quiet satisfaction. He had found her when she was at her lowest, and he knew that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could change lives forever. For the first time that day, the little girl allowed herself to hope. She still did not know what the future would bring, but with the cowboy by her side, the long, lonely Texas road seemed a little less frightening. The sun was sinking lower, painting the Texas sky in shades of orange and pink. The little girl walked carefully beside the wounded cowboy, her small hand clutching his larger, rough one. The road stretched ahead, long and uneven, but she no longer felt completely alone. Each step was tiring, yet with him by her side, she felt a spark of courage she hadn't felt in hours. The cowboy moved slowly, mindful of the girl's pace and the pain in his own arm. Every step reminded him of the barbed wire that had cut him earlier, but he ignored it. The girl's safety came first. He kept speaking softly, telling her about the ranch he worked on, about the animals he cared for, and even about the sunsets he had watched countless times. The little girl listened intently, imagining the colors and sounds he described. It made her feel less trapped in darkness and more part of the world around her. "You have a strong heart," the cowboy said gently. "It takes courage to keep moving when you do know where you're going." The girl sniffled, trying to hold back tears. I didn't know anyone would care," she admitted. Her voice was small, almost a whisper. "I thought I was all alone." "You're not alone anymore," the cowboy reassured her. "I'm right here and I'm not going anywhere." The little girl's small hand squeezed his, holding onto his promise. She wanted to believe him, and the warmth in his voice made it easier. For the first time that day, she felt a flicker of hope that maybe someone truly cared. The road became rougher as they moved forward. Small stones dug into their feet, and the uneven dirt made it difficult for the cowboy to keep the girl steady. He stopped several times, letting her rest and checking the limp of his horse. Each pause was a reminder that they had a long journey ahead, but it was worth it. The little girl sat in the shade of a tree, her small body exhausted. "Are you hungry?" the cowboy asked. He rummaged through his small bag and found a few pieces of dry bread and a water bottle. He handed them to her carefully. The girl took the bread with both hands, biting quickly but politely. The bread was dry and rough, but it was enough to give her some strength. She drank from the water bottle after, the cool liquid running down her throat and washing away some of the dust and heat. "You feel a little better?" he asked, brushing some hair away from her face. "Yes," she whispered, "a little." Her small face brightened a little and she smiled faintly. It was the first smile in a long, long day. The cowboy smiled back. "Good, we'll keep going slowly. We'll get you somewhere safe soon." As they continued down the road, the little girl started asking questions. "Where are we going?" she asked. "To a place where you can rest," the cowboy said. "A place where someone can take care of you properly." The girl nodded, feeling a sense of relief she hadn't felt before. She asked about the cowboy, curious about the man who had stopped to help her. "What happened to your arm?" she asked gently. "I got a little hurt at the ranch," he explained. "It's nothing too serious. I can still walk and I can still help you." "You're brave," she said softly, her words full of wonder. "Even though you're hurt, you came to help me." The cowboy chuckled, wincing as the movement caused pain in his arm. "Sometimes being brave isn't about not being hurt," he said. "It's about helping someone else, even when it's hard." The girl thought about his words. She had never met anyone like him before. Most adults had ignored her, walked past her, or told her to go back where she came from. But this man had stopped, even though he was in pain. He had risked his own comfort and safety to help her. It made her heart feel warm, as if someone truly cared for her well-being. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of dry grass and distant fields. The little girl reached out, feeling the movement of the air against her small hands. The cowboy noticed and smiled. "You're learning to pay attention to the world in a different way," he said. "Even if you can't see, you can feel and hear a lot of things." "Yes," she whispered. "It feels nice in a way." They walked a little further, and the cowboy noticed that the girl's small steps were becoming steadier. She was starting to trust him more, her fear slowly giving way to curiosity and cautious confidence. He knew that trust like this didn't happen quickly, and he was careful not to push her too fast. Every word, every step, every small gesture mattered. As they walked, he shared more stories of his life. He talked about the horses he had trained, the sunsets he had watched, and the nights he had spent under the stars, feeling the wind and listening to the sounds of nature. The little girl listened closely, her imagination filling in the pictures he described. She asked questions about animals, about ranch work, about life on the open land. Each question gave her a sense of control, a small reminder that she was no longer completely powerless. "You're asking a lot of questions," the cowboy said with a soft smile. "Curiosity is a good thing. It helps you learn, helps you grow, and helps you feel less afraid." The girl nodded, feeling proud of herself. "I want to know everything," she said softly. "Even if I can't see it." "You will," he said, "and I'll help you as much as I can." The sky began to darken slightly as the sun dipped closer to the horizon. Shadows stretched long across the dusty road, and the air cooled just a little. The little girl shivered slightly, and the cowboy noticed. He wrapped his arm gently around her shoulders, providing comfort and warmth. She leaned against him, feeling safe for the first time in what seemed like forever. "You know," he said softly, "even though it's getting dark, you don't have to be afraid. I'm right here." I feel safe with you," she admitted, her small voice trembling, "even though I'm scared of the dark." "That's normal," he said kindly. "The dark can be scary for anyone. But as long as we're together, we'll face it step by step." They continued slowly, every step careful and deliberate. The cowboy's horse stumbled a little and he winced, but he pressed on. The girl held his hand tightly, feeling the reassurance of his strength and kindness. For her, each step forward was a victory, a small triumph over fear and loneliness. As night began to fall, they found a small shaded area under a tree to rest. The cowboy helped the girl sit down, and they shared some more water and a few crumbs of bread. He checked her small feet and legs, noticing the small scratches from walking on the rough road. He cleaned them carefully, using the few resources he had, making sure she was as comfortable as possible. "You're very brave," he said again. "Most kids wouldn't have made it this far, but you did." The girl's small eyes welled up with tears, but this time they were not only from fear, they were from relief, from gratitude, and from a sense of being seen and cared for. She had been lost, alone and scared, and now, for the first time, she felt like someone truly cared for her well-being. "Thank you," she whispered again, "for helping me." "You're welcome," he said softly, "and remember, this is just the beginning. We'll get you to safety and you'll be all right." The little girl leaned against him, feeling a sense of comfort and trust growing stronger. She didn't know what the future would hold, but for the first time in a long while, she felt that she could face it with courage. And the cowboy, despite his own pain and exhaustion, felt a quiet satisfaction. He had found her when she was most vulnerable, and together they were moving towards safety and hope. The Texas night began to fall, and stars started to appear one by one. The little girl listened to the sounds of the night, the rustle of grass, the distant calls of animals, the soft wind blowing through the open land. She felt a little less afraid now, her hand still gripping the cowboy's as they rested under the tree. She realized that even in darkness, there could be comfort and care, as long as someone was willing to stay by your side. For the first time since she had wandered alone on the road, the little girl allowed herself to imagine a safe place, a warm place, a place where she could rest and feel protected. And she knew that with the cowboy by her side, that place was not as far away as it had seemed. The stars sparkled faintly above as the little girl and the cowboy finally stood, ready to continue their journey. The Texas road stretched ahead, dark and quiet, with only the distant sounds of the night filling the air. The little girl's small hand gripped the cowboy's tightly, and for the first time she didn't feel afraid to take another step into the unknown. "Are you ready?" the cowboy asked gently, his voice calm but full of reassurance. The girl nodded. I think so," she whispered. Her small voice carried both determination and a hint of nervousness. They moved slowly, carefully navigating the uneven road. The cowboy's horse limped along behind them, its hooves making soft clopping sounds that echoed in the still night. The girl listened to the rhythm of the horse, finding comfort in its steady pace. Each step forward was a small victory, a step away from fear and toward safety. As they walked, the cowboy kept talking to the girl, keeping her mind focused on something other than exhaustion or fear. He described the sounds around them, the soft rustle of the grass in the wind, the distant call of a night bird, the gentle hum of insects. The girl listened intently, imagining the shapes and colors of the world she could not see. "You hear that?" he asked, pointing, though she could not see. "That's the wind moving through the tall grass. It's a little like music, don't you think?" The girl tilted her head, feeling the breeze against her face. "Yes," she whispered. "It sounds nice." The cowboy smiled. "Sometimes when we can't see, we notice other things more. The world is full of sounds, smells, and feelings. And if we pay attention, it can be even more beautiful than anything we can see." The girl thought about this, her small heart opening to the idea that even without sight, the world was full of life and wonder. She squeezed his hand again, feeling comforted by both his words and his presence. As they continued, the road became rougher, filled with rocks and uneven patches that made walking difficult. The cowboy slowed his pace, guiding the girl carefully around obstacles. When the girl stumbled over a small stone, he caught her quickly. "Careful," he said softly, "but you're doing very well. You're stronger than you think." The girl felt a spark of pride. "I'm trying," she said, her voice small but determined. "You're doing more than trying," the cowboy replied. "You're brave, and that's very important." The wind shifted suddenly, carrying a faint smell of smoke from a distant field. The cowboy paused, sniffing the air and listening carefully. "Looks like there's a small fire a few miles ahead," he said. "Nothing too close to us, but we should be cautious." The little girl shivered slightly. "Is it dangerous?" she asked. "Not if we keep our distance," he said. "We'll be fine, we just need to stay alert." They continued slowly, moving around the smoke and staying close to the edge of the road. The girl's small body was growing tired, but the cowboy encouraged her with gentle words and soft guidance. Every now and then he would let her rest under the shade of a tree or beside a small bush, offering water and some bread from his bag. "You're doing very well," he said during one rest. Most adults would have given up by now, but you keep going. That's remarkable." The girl smiled faintly, feeling proud despite her exhaustion. "I want to get there," she said softly. "I want to be safe." "You will," the cowboy reassured her. "We're getting closer, and soon you'll be in a place where someone can take care of you properly." The night grew darker and the stars twinkled more brightly above. The little girl's mind wandered to thoughts of what awaited her: warmth, food, a bed, and safety. She imagined someone smiling at her, holding her hand, and telling her everything would be okay. The thought filled her with hope and gave her the strength to keep moving. As they walked, they encountered small obstacles: a fallen branch, a patch of thorny bushes, and uneven ground. The cowboy guided her around each one, using his experience and careful observation. The girl learned to trust his voice and instructions, following him closely and carefully. "Step here," he would say. "Slowly, careful now." "Yes," she would whisper, trusting him completely. The journey was long and tiring, but with each step, the bond between them grew stronger. The cowboy was patient and attentive, never rushing her or showing frustration. The girl began to feel that she could rely on him completely, and a sense of safety began to replace the fear that had gripped her all day. At one point, they reached a small wooden bridge crossing a shallow creek. The water flowed quietly beneath, and the girl hesitated. I don't know if I can cross," she said softly, fear creeping into her voice. "You can," the cowboy said gently. "I'll be right beside you the whole time, just take my hand." She took his hand, her fingers gripping tightly. He guided her step by step across the bridge, describing each movement and sound. The water trickled beneath them, and the wood creaked slightly, but they crossed safely. The girl let out a small sigh of relief, feeling proud of herself for facing the fear. "You see," the cowboy said with a smile, "you can do more than you think." The little girl smiled faintly, her small heart swelling with confidence. She felt that maybe, just maybe, she could face the world again. After the bridge, the road became smoother, but fatigue was beginning to weigh heavily on the girl. Her small legs ached, and her eyelids drooped from exhaustion. The cowboy noticed and stopped under a large tree, letting her rest again. He knelt beside her, offering water and speaking softly to keep her calm. "You're almost there," he said. "Just a little further and we'll find someone who can help you." The girl nodded, too tired to speak, but feeling a renewed sense of determination. She closed her eyes for a moment, resting against him, and felt comforted by his presence. As they resumed walking, the first lights of a small town appeared in the distance. The little girl's heart lifted at the sight. She could not see the lights, but she could hear the faint sounds of life: cars moving, people talking, dogs barking. It was a welcome change from the emptiness of the road. "We're almost there," the cowboy said softly. "Do you hear that? That's the sound of people. That means help is very close." The girl's small hand squeezed his tightly, her heart filled with hope. I can't wait," she whispered. They walked the final stretch carefully, the cowboy supporting her every step of the way. As they entered the town, a few late-night pedestrians noticed them. Some stared curiously, but the cowboy's calm demeanor and the girl's small hand holding his made it clear that she was safe. Finally, they reached a small house with a light on in the window. The cowboy knocked gently and a kind-looking woman opened the door. "Can I help you?" she asked, noticing the girl and the man's injuries. "This little girl needs help," the cowboy said softly. "She's been alone and she needs someone to take care of her." The woman nodded, her eyes full of concern. "Come in quickly, you're safe now." The cowboy helped the girl inside, making sure she was comfortable. She sank onto a soft chair, exhausted but relieved. For the first time since wandering on the Texas road, she felt truly safe. The woman offered water and a blanket, and the girl drank slowly, feeling warmth and security for the first time in what felt like forever. The cowboy watched quietly, a small smile on his face. Despite his own injuries and exhaustion, he felt a deep satisfaction. He had found her when she was at her lowest, and he had helped her reach safety. The little girl looked up at him, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. "You're welcome," he said softly. "Remember, you're safe now, that's what matters." As they settled in, the cowboy reflected on the journey. The road had been long and difficult, filled with challenges, but every step had been worth it. The little girl had found safety, trust, and hope. And he had discovered something too, the power of kindness, patience, and human connection. The night grew quiet, the lights of the town flickering gently in the distance. The little girl, finally resting, felt a sense of peace she had not known before. She knew the journey was not over, but with someone willing to guide her, someone willing to care, she felt ready to face whatever came next. And for the cowboy, seeing her safe and cared for was enough. Sometimes the smallest acts of courage and compassion could change a life forever. And tonight, under the Texas stars, that change had begun. The little girl sat quietly on the soft chair inside the small house, her small hands clutching a blanket. Her body was exhausted from the long journey, but her heart felt lighter than it had in a long time. She looked around, noticing for the first time the warmth of a home, the gentle hum of lights, and the quiet comfort of safety. The distant sounds of the Texas night were no longer frightening. They felt familiar, welcoming, and peaceful. The cowboy knelt beside her, carefully inspecting his arm and adjusting the bandage he had wrapped earlier. The cut throbbed, but he barely noticed the pain. His attention was on the girl, making sure she was comfortable, that she had water, and that she felt secure. The house smelled faintly of baked bread and clean laundry, a smell that reminded her of happier times before she had been alone. "You're safe now," the cowboy said softly. "No one is going to leave you here alone." The girl's small voice trembled as she whispered, I didn't think anyone would come for me." The cowboy shook his head gently. "Sometimes help comes when you least expect it," he said. "Even when it seems like no one cares, there are people willing to stop, willing to help, willing to make sure you're safe." Her small eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were tears of relief and gratitude. She had been alone, scared, and lost, and now, finally, she felt protected. She reached out a tiny hand to touch his arm, a gesture of trust and appreciation. The woman who had opened the door earlier approached. She smiled warmly at the girl. "You're safe now, sweetheart," she said gently. "You can stay here, rest, and we'll take care of you." The little girl nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. She had never known such kindness from strangers, and it made her heart ache in a good way. The cowboy helped her settle in, offering words of comfort and guidance. "Rest now," he said. "You've earned it." As she leaned back, finally able to close her eyes, her mind wandered over the events of the day. She thought about the hot, lonely road, the fear, the exhaustion, and then the cowboy. His calm voice, his gentle guidance, and his unwavering support had carried her through the darkness. For the first time, she realized that there were people in the world who cared enough to act, to protect, to guide. The cowboy stood near the door, looking out into the night. His horse rested quietly outside, and the soft breeze carried the scents of the surrounding fields. He thought about the day's events, the desperation in the girl's voice, the fear in her small body, and the determination she had shown despite everything. He felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing he had made a difference. Helping her had been difficult. He had been hurt, tired, and unsure of what he would find when he approached her cries. But he had acted anyway. And now, seeing her safe, he knew that every step, every careful movement, every word of encouragement had been worth it. The little girl stirred slightly, waking from a brief nap. She looked around, blinking, and then she smiled faintly when she saw the cowboy still nearby. "Are you staying?" she asked softly, her voice small but hopeful. "Yes," he said, smiling gently. "I'll stay until I know you're completely safe." The girl's small hand reached out, touching his arm again. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." "You don't have to thank me," the cowboy said softly. "You've been brave all along. I just helped you get through it." The woman from the house brought over a warm blanket and some water. "You'll feel better soon," she said kindly, "and you'll get something to eat too." The little girl nodded, feeling a sense of comfort she hadn't felt in a long time. The exhaustion in her body made her lean back, and she closed her eyes again, finally able to rest without fear. The cowboy watched her for a moment, noticing how small and fragile she seemed, yet how strong she had been throughout the day. He thought about how easily life could have gone differently, how someone else might have ignored her cries, and how fear and loneliness could have continued to shape her. But now she was safe. She was cared for, and she had hope. He took a deep breath, feeling the quiet of the night settle around him. The stars above twinkled softly, a reminder of the vast world beyond the road, beyond fear and beyond loneliness. He realized that helping someone in need was not just about the immediate act. It was about giving them a chance to trust again, to hope again, to believe in kindness and compassion. The little girl stirred again, this time more awake. She looked up at him with curiosity. "Will I be okay?" she asked softly, her small voice tinged with uncertainty. "You will," he said firmly. "You're strong, brave, and now you have people who care for you. Nothing is going to hurt you here." Her eyes filled with gratitude, and she nodded, trusting him completely. For the first time in what felt like forever, she allowed herself to feel safe, protected, and cared for. The woman from the house guided the cowboy aside. "He's done so much for her," she said softly. "It's not every day you find someone willing to help like that." The cowboy nodded, brushing dust from his clothes. "She needed someone," he said simply, "and I wasn't going to let her stay alone on that road, not if I could do anything about it." The woman smiled, understanding the quiet heroism in his words. "Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can change lives forever," she said. The cowboy watched the little girl as she finally settled into a comfortable position. She was exhausted, yes, but her small face reflected a sense of peace. She had survived fear, loneliness, and uncertainty, and now she had found safety. And in that moment, he knew that all the pain and struggle he had endured to reach her was worth it. Hours passed, and the little girl slept peacefully. The cowboy stayed nearby, keeping a quiet watch over her. Outside, the night remained calm, the Texas stars twinkling gently above. He reflected on the journey, the hot road, the cries, the obstacles, and the courage the girl had shown. It was a reminder that life could be unpredictable, challenging, and even painful, but that kindness and courage could make all the difference. The little girl's breathing was steady now, a sign that she was truly resting. The cowboy felt a deep sense of relief and satisfaction. He had acted when it mattered most, and in doing so he had given her something she had not had in a long time: hope. Morning came slowly, with the soft light of dawn spilling through the windows. The little girl awoke, blinking against the new brightness. She looked around, recognizing the warmth and safety of the house. She smiled faintly, her small heart feeling lighter than it had in days. The cowboy was still there, standing quietly by the door. "Good morning," he said softly. "Good morning," she replied, her voice small but cheerful. I slept well." "That's good," he said. "You needed it." She looked up at him with gratitude in her eyes. "Thank you for everything," she whispered again. "You don't have to thank me," he said. "Just remember that you're strong, brave, and capable, and now you have people who will help you along the way." The woman from the house smiled at the two of them. "You're safe now, little one," she said, "and you'll be well taken care of." The little girl nodded, feeling a sense of peace she had not known for a long time. She reached out a small hand, touching the cowboy's arm one last time. "I won't forget you," she said softly. "You won't have to," he replied gently. "Just take care of yourself and remember the courage you showed today. It will help you through anything." As the cowboy left the house and stepped outside, he looked back one last time. The little girl was safe, cared for, and beginning a new chapter of her life. And he knew, deep in his heart, that sometimes the smallest actions, stopping to help someone in need, lending a hand, showing patience and kindness, could change a life forever. The Texas road behind him was quiet now, the first light of day washing over the land. He mounted his horse, feeling the soreness in his body but also a quiet sense of satisfaction. He had acted when it mattered, and in doing so, he had made a difference. And as the little girl began her new day in the safety and warmth of a caring home, she carried with her the memory of a kind cowboy who had stopped, listened, and guided her through fear and darkness to hope and safety. She would never forget the courage, patience, and kindness that had changed everything for her, and she would grow stronger because of it. The sun rose higher, bathing the world in warmth and light, a symbol of hope, new beginnings, and the power of human compassion.